Hi, Terry Franks here. Welcome back to my channel, Prescott Voice. Please don't forget to hit those subscribe, like, and share buttons. My next favorite female of the Bible that we really don't know that much about, but she has just come down through the ages as being one of the most fascinating women ever. And I am talking about the Queen of Sheba. Now, we don't really know where she was from. Ethiopians claim her as their own in a 14th century book that was written. The story goes that she was a black woman. I don't know whether she was black, whether she was brown, whether she was white. I don't know. Nobody really knows for sure because it was so long ago. But what I find fascinating about the queen is that she heard of King Solomon's wisdom and all that he had. And she was so curious about what she heard about this famous wise king of Israel that she traveled a very long way to ask him questions, to test him, to find out whether he was really who he said he was. So 2 Chronicles 9:1-10 reads, "Now when the Queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Solomon, she came to Jerusalem to test him with hard questions. Having a very great retinue of camels that bore spices." That could be a clue as to where she was from. Was it Ethiopia? Were there a lot of spices in Ethiopia? I don't know. She had camels just loaded with spices. Can you just imagine? Gold in abundance and precious stones. And when she came to Solomon, she spoke with him about all that was in her heart. What was in her heart? Wouldn't it have been wonderful to know the questions she asked? I sit here and I think, she was a woman and she was over a great kingdom. We don't know exactly what kingdom. We can only speculate and guess. So why do you think the Bible doesn't mention her skin color? And it doesn't here anywhere in the Kings and Chronicles account of the Queen of Sheba. Never mentions her color at all. Why is that? Why do you think the Bible doesn't mention her skin color? It's because it didn't matter then. Skin color and race had nothing to do with it, like it does today. Skin color back then was not important. They viewed the differences back in 550, 400 BCE. Back then, people viewed differences mainly in terms of where they came from and their lineage. The color of their skin didn't matter. And it shouldn't matter today. But that's all you hear because that fits today's narrative for the left. And it causes all sorts of violence and hatred and problems. Some people have tried to make the Song of Solomon chapter 1 about the Shulamite woman being the Queen of Sheba, where she talks about being black or dark. But that doesn't fit either because she talks about being dark skinned because of being out in the sun in the vineyards, which would typically mean that you're very brown, very tan, not necessarily of a different race or black. I feel like in this age where everybody's just railing about race, this is racist, that's racist, milk is racist. If you drink milk, you're racist. It's just crazy. And, when you go to the Bible and you look throughout the Bible, the entirety of the Bible, there is no racial slurs. There's nothing racist in the Bible. Not a single thing that I could find. And if anyone out there can find something in the Bible that shows us that God was a racist or any personality in the Bible, the Bible is 66 books written by 40 authors, all of it, every word, every comma, every period, every number, everything in the Bible was inspired by God. It was God-breathed. Yet, nothing about racism. So was the Queen of Sheba black? Was she brown? Or was she white? Nobody knows, and it looks like nobody cares. And in the first century, the Jewish historian Josephus wrote a history of the Jews where he retold the stories of the Bible and says the Queen of Sheba ruled over Ethiopia and Egypt. So if this is true, it's quite possible she could have been a very dark skin, but we don't know for sure. Josephus, which is extra biblical, it's not in the Bible, the history that Josephus writes of the biblical days is fascinating. I mean, just volumes of his writing. And you start reading Josephus and everything biblically comes alive. I just love it. His history is wonderful. And much of what he writes corresponds to what's written in the Word of God as far as historical context goes. At the time of the Queen of Sheba, Egypt was the richest province in the Roman Empire. And Ethiopia was oftentimes known as the edge of the world. So by having the Queen of Sheba visit Solomon, Josephus made Solomon seem connected to the wealthy and exotic places. But in all of Josephus's writings, just like the Bible, he still does not say the Queen of Sheba was black. Josephus doesn't even mention it. Josephus lived in the Mediterranean world, and most of the people in the Mediterranean are brown. Slightly darker, slightly lighter is not something he would have thought deserved to be mentioned. I just find it fascinating today how we are so focused on our differences as it relates to skin color. Yet we all bleed red. We're all human beings, every single one of us. My skin color doesn't matter. I don't care. Race does not matter, should not matter, and it didn't in the Bible. This is something that has grown over time. Race just doesn't enter into it for me. The Queen of Sheba is a fascinating figure. She was a strong, powerful, rich woman, and yet she had a lot on her heart. So she comes to see an Israelite king. Isn't that interesting? She wasn't Jewish, but she was there to speak with King Solomon because she heard about his God. And this is what she says. She blessed his God. This is what the Queen of Sheba had to say to King Solomon. I love this. And you can just kind of imagine it in the theater of your mind. What it was like to sit with the King of Israel, King Solomon, the wisest man that ever lived and that ever will live, aside from Jesus Christ. He was the wisest and the richest of all that will ever live. And here she is. She came all the way from wherever she came from, whether it was Ethiopia or Egypt. She may have come from Yemen. Who knows? I don't know. Nobody really knows for sure. Only God knows. But this is fascinating. This is what she said. And when Queen of Sheba had seen the wisdom of Solomon, the house that he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his servants, the service of his waiters and their apparel, his cup bearers and their apparel, and his entryway by which he went up to the house of the Lord, there was no more spirit in her. Everything she had in her heart, she had sat with him and questioned him about. And because he was the wisest man that ever lived, piece of cake for him, easily explained anything to her. And every question she had hidden in her heart. How many things do you wonder about every day? Wouldn't you just love to sit with someone like King Solomon? And here you are, a very important queen, and he is telling you everything you wanted to know. I think that's beautiful. Then she said to the king, it was a true report, which I heard in my own land about your words and your wisdom. So his words and his wisdom went throughout all of these nations. She goes on, however, I did not believe their words until I came and saw with my own eyes. And indeed, the half of the greatness of your wisdom was not told me. You exceed the fame of which I heard. Happy are your men, and happy are these your servants, who stand continually before you and hear your wisdom, with an exclamation point. So she said it with feeling. She was blown away. Blessed be the Lord your God, who delighted in you, setting you on his throne to be king for the Lord your God. Because your God has loved Israel, to establish them forever. Listen to that. The Queen of Sheba is saying that God has established Israel forever. Think about that one. Therefore, he made you king over them to do justice and righteousness. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, spices in great abundance, and precious stones. There were never any spices such as those the Queen of Sheba gave to King Solomon. She was queen over a huge land and peoples, and yet her heart was so filled with questions that she had that she couldn't answer. And who knows? Maybe they were philosophical questions. Maybe there were questions about love, maybe of honor, maybe of what's to come. We don't know. I wish there was just a list of all the questions that the queen asked King Solomon. Maybe we'll learn one day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. Thank you for watching.